Captain Lee Jiho walked into the Galactic Council chambers with heavy steps. His black uniform showed the marks of 3 sleepless nights. Behind him, Dr. Park Min-ji carried a datapad filled with bad news. The huge room buzzed with alien voices, speaking in dozens of languages. The council chambers were built to make visitors feel small. Giant pillars reached up to a glass dome that showed the stars. Around the curved walls, representatives from 47 different alien species sat in floating chairs. At the center, Prime Counselor Quindal's chair glowed with soft blue light. Lee Jiho had been Earth's voice in this place for 5 years. He had seen his people treated like servants, used as shields, and thrown into danger while others stayed safe. Today would be different. Today he would finally speak the truth. The human delegation requests emergency session status, Lee Jiho said into his translator device. His words echoed in the huge room. Counselor Vexathara, a tall creature with purple skin and 4 arms, laughed. The sound was like breaking glass. What crisis brings the pet humans before us now? Dr. Park Min-ji stepped forward. Her hands shook slightly as she activated her holographic display. Images of destroyed planets filled the air above them. Burned cities, empty space where colonies used to be, and the dark ships that caused it all. The Void Swarm has attacked 17 more human colonies in the past month, she said. Over 2 million people are dead or missing. We need council support to evacuate the remaining settlements. The floating images showed the destruction clearly. Whole planets stripped of life. Space stations torn apart like paper. The black ships of the Void Swarm moved through the wreckage like hungry sharks. Prime Counselor Quindal's ancient face showed no emotion. His species had lived for thousands of years, and human lives meant little to him. These outer rim territories were always dangerous. Your people chose to settle there. We settled there because the council sent us there, Lee Jiho said, his voice getting louder. Every dangerous mission, every unknown threat, every suicide job goes to humans first. You use us as your early warning system. Several alien counselors made sounds of annoyance. Counselor Morthak, whose species looked like walking trees, waved his branch-like arms. Humans breed quickly and adapt well to harsh conditions. This makes you suitable for frontier work. Dr. Park Min-ji touched her datapad, and new images appeared. These showed the pattern of Void Swarm attacks over the past year. Red dots marked every destroyed settlement. They formed a clear line pointing toward the galaxy's center. Look at this data, she said. The Void Swarm isn't attacking randomly. It's targeting human settlements specifically. There's a pattern here that suggests... Enough, Quindal interrupted. Your theories are not our concern. Commander Kim Do-hyun of... Your defense fleet has been given new orders. 3 of your fleets will move to intercept the Void Swarm in Sector 7. Lee Jiho felt his blood turn cold. Sector 7 was a death trap. No ship that went there ever came back. That's suicide. Those fleets contain 60,000 people. They will provide valuable intelligence about Void Swarm capabilities, Vexathara said with another glass-breaking laugh. Consider it a learning experience. Learning experience? Lee Jiho's voice cracked. You're talking about human lives. Lives that exist to serve the greater galactic good, Quindal said calmly. Your species joined the council with the understanding that you would fulfill whatever role best serves civilization. Dr. Park Min-ji tried again, her voice desperate. If you would just look at the data, you'd see that the Void Swarm is following a specific pattern. It's not random destruction. There's intelligence behind it, and it's learning from each attack. Your data is meaningless, Vexathara said. Humans see patterns where none exist. It's a flaw in your primitive minds. Around the chamber, other counselors nodded in agreement. The Zelenites whispered among themselves. The Rigelians made clicking sounds that meant approval. None of them cared about human deaths. Lee Jiho looked around the room at faces that showed no sympathy, no concern, no basic respect for life. These beings had ruled the galaxy for millions of years, but they had forgotten what it meant to care about others. We're not asking for special treatment, he said quietly. We're asking for the same protection you give to every other council member. But you are not every other council member, Quindal replied. Each species has its place in the galactic order. Some species think great thoughts. Some species create beautiful art. Some species explore the mysteries of the universe. And some species die so that others may live safely. The words hit Li Jiho like a physical blow. Around him, alien counselors nodded as if this was the most natural thing in the world. Dr. Park Minji's face went pale. Even the translator devices seemed to struggle with the casual cruelty of the statement. You're saying we exist to die for. You, Li Jiho said. You exist to serve the greater good, Quindal corrected. If that service requires sacrifice, then sacrifice is what you give. Vexithara leaned forward in her floating chair, her 4 arms spread wide. Consider it an honor. Not every species gets to contribute meaningfully to galactic peace. That was when Li Jiho snapped. 5 years of watching his people used as cannon fodder. 5 years of seeing human colonies treated as acceptable losses. 5 years of sitting in this room while aliens decided which humans would live and which would die. He stood up slowly, his chair making a soft sound as it slid back. Every eye in the chamber turned to him. The huge room fell silent except for the quiet hum of the life support systems. Dr. Park Minji watched him with worried eyes. She could see something changing in his face, something dangerous and final. Li Jiho reached up and unpinned the small golden symbol from his uniform collar. The council insignia caught the light from the dome above. For 5 years he had worn it with pride, believing it meant something. Now he saw it for what it really was, a collar marking him as property. No, he said simply. The word echoed in the silent chamber. Prime Counselor Quindal's ancient eyebrows rose slightly. It was probably the first time in centuries that someone had said no to him. I'm sorry, Quindal said. Li Jiho held up the golden insignia so everyone could see it. Then he opened his fingers and let it fall. The small piece of metal hit the floor with a tiny sound that seemed impossibly loud in the huge room. I said no, Li Jiho repeated. No more suicide missions, no more acceptable losses, no more using human lives as your insurance policy. Vexithara made a sound like steam escaping. You cannot simply refuse council orders. Watch me, Li Jiho said. He turned to face the assembled counselors, all 47 species represented, in this room. His voice carried clearly in the silence. As of this moment, humanity formally withdraws from the Galactic Council. The chamber erupted in shocked voices. Aliens shouted in dozens of languages. Some rose from their chairs. Others activated emergency communication devices. But Li Jiho wasn't finished. We're done being your servants, he said, his voice cutting through the noise. We're done dying for species that see us as disposable. We're done pretending this council represents anything except your own convenience. Dr. Park Minji moved. To stand beside him, her face set with determination. Around them, the chaos grew louder, but they walked toward the exit together. You cannot survive without the council, Quindal called after them. Li Jiho stopped at the chamber doors and looked back one last time. Let's find out. They walked out of the Galactic Council chambers and into an uncertain future. Behind them, the alien voices grew to a roar of anger and disbelief. Ahead of them lay the hardest decision humanity had ever made. The universe was about to learn what happened when you pushed humans too far. Admiral Cho Sunwoo stood on the bridge of the UES Defiant, watching the stars through the main view screen. Her gray hair was pulled back in a tight bun, and her uniform showed the strain of 3 weeks without proper sleep. Around her, communication, officers worked frantically at their stations. Admiral, we're getting reports from all sectors, Lieutenant Kang Hyunwoo said from his station. The withdrawal is happening faster than planned. News of humanity's exit from the Galactic Council had spread across the galaxy in just hours. On every human world, in every space station, the message was the same. Pack up and come home. It was the largest movement of people in galactic history. How many colonies have we evacuated so far? Admiral Cho asked. 437, ma'am, the lieutenant replied. That leaves 410 still in progress. The numbers were staggering. Humanity had spread across the galaxy over 150 years, building homes on worlds that other species found too dangerous or too difficult. Now they were all coming back to the small cluster of systems around Earth. Director Yoon walked onto the bridge carrying a data tablet. Her intelligence network had been working around the clock since the withdrawal began. What they found made her stomach turn. "Admiral, you need to see this," she said, handing over the tablet. The screen showed classified council documents that her agents had stolen during the chaos. Admiral Cho read through them, her face growing darker with each line. "They knew," she said quietly. "They knew the Void Swarm was targeting our colony specifically. The documents were clear. Council intelligence had identified the pattern months ago. The Void Swarm wasn't just randomly destroying settlements. It was following a specific path through human space, learning from each attack, growing stronger. With each victory, there's more," Director Yoon said. "Look at Section 12. Admiral Cho scrolled down and found the section that made her hands shake with anger. The Council hadn't just known about the pattern, they had encouraged it. Internal messages showed them redirecting human settlements into the Void Swarm's path, using entire colonies as test subjects. "They were feeding us to that thing," Admiral Cho said, "like throwing meat to a wild animal to see how it hunts." On the other side of the bridge, engineer Kang Minho worked at a specialized console. His fingers flew over the controls as he coordinated humanity's secret weapon. For 10 years while serving the Council, humans had been building something in secret. "Admiral, Project Exodus is ready for activation," he said. Project Exodus was humanity's insurance policy. While aliens saw them as simple servants, human engineers had been reverse engineering every piece of alien technology they could get their hands on. They improved it, made it better, and built it into ships that no one knew existed. "Show me," Admiral Cho said. The main view screen changed to show empty space near Jupiter. At first, nothing seemed to be there. Then Kang Minho entered a command and the space came alive with light. Massive ships uncloaked one by one, emerging from hiding places in asteroid fields and dark matter clouds. 1,200 combat vessels, Kang Minho said with pride. Each one built with the best technology from every Council species, but improved with human engineering. The ships were beautiful and deadly. They looked nothing like the crude vessels humans were supposed to use. These ships had Altarian energy shields, Rigelian quantum drives, and Etherian neural interfaces, all made better by human creativity. Ambassador Wei Nara joined them on the bridge, still wearing her diplomatic robes. She had spent the last 3 weeks politely telling desperate alien delegations that humanity was no longer available for dangerous missions. "The aliens are starting to panic," she reported. "Without our ships maintaining the trade routes, commerce is falling apart. The Zelenites are demanding we return to fix their mining platforms." "And what did you tell them?" Admiral Cho asked. "I told them to fix their own platforms," Wei Nara said with a slight smile. "The Zelenite ambassador actually fainted when I said that." Across the galaxy, the effects of humanity's withdrawal were becoming clear. For 150 years, humans had maintained the dangerous jobs that kept galactic civilization running. They fixed broken equipment in radiation zones. They explored unknown regions of space. They fought pirates and monsters in places other species wouldn't go. Now, all of that had stopped. On the trade world of Nexus Prime, cargo ships sat empty, because no human crews were available to fly through pirate-controlled space. The Rigelian shipping companies offered huge sums of money, but no humans answered their calls. In the Outer Rim, mining operations shut down because human technicians were the only ones willing to work near unstable stars. The Altarians tried to send their own people, but 2 ships were lost in the first week. Most importantly, exploration of new sectors had come to a complete halt. Other species talked about the glory of discovery, but when it came time to actually face the unknown, only humans were brave enough to go first. "Communications from the Council are getting more desperate," Lieutenant Kang reported. "They're offering increased territory allocations, better trade agreements, even a permanent seat on the Inner Council." Admiral Cho laughed, but there was no humor in it. A permanent seat so they can give us orders more efficiently. How generous of them. Director Yoon's tablet beeped with an urgent message. She read it quickly, then looked up with a grim expression. Ma'am, we have a problem. The Void Swarm has accelerated its attacks. Without our early warning stations, it's moving toward the galactic core. The main screen showed a tactical display of the galaxy. Red dots marked Void Swarm positions, moving inward like a cancer. Without human settlements to feed on, it was seeking new targets among the alien core worlds. How long before it reaches the first major alien system? Admiral Cho asked. At current speed, 6 weeks, Director Yoon replied. The bridge fell silent as everyone absorbed this information. For months, the Council had used human colonies as a buffer against the Void Swarm. Now that buffer was gone, and the thing they had fed with human lives was coming for them. Admiral, incoming priority transmission from Earth, the communications officer announced. The screen switched to show President Kim Do-eun in his office. The leader of United Earth looked tired but determined. Admiral Cho, I've been monitoring your reports. Are we ready for the final phase? Yes, Mr. President. All human assets are either back in Earth space or en route. The alien trade routes are failing and exploration has stopped completely. They're starting to realize what they've lost. President Kim nodded. And the Council's response? Panic, mostly. They keep sending delegations demanding we return to our posts. Ambassador Wei has been turning them away, but they're getting more desperate each day. Good. Let them see what the galaxy looks like without human sacrifice holding it together. Engineer Kang Minho spoke up from his station. Mr. President, should I begin the next phase of ship construction? We have enough resources now to build the heavy combat vessels. Not yet, the President said. Let them stew in their own mess for a while longer. They need to understand that we're not coming back as their servants. As if summoned by their conversation, the proximity alarms started sounding. A massive alien fleet had just dropped out of hyperspace near the edge of the solar system. Identification? Admiral Cho demanded. Council ships, ma'am, led by Prime Counselor Quindal's personal flagship. They're requesting permission to approach Earth. Ambassador Wei Nara straightened her robes. I'll handle this. The communication channel opened, showing the ancient Etherian leader on his bridge. His normally calm face showed signs of stress. Ambassador Wei, the Council demands an immediate audience with your leadership. This withdrawal is unacceptable and must be reversed. Wei Nara's voice was perfectly polite and completely cold. I'm sorry, Prime Counselor, but Earth is no longer accepting Council delegations. Perhaps you should focus on the Void Swarm approaching your core worlds. You will return to your assigned duties immediately, Quindal said, his voice rising. The galaxy depends on human services. The galaxy depends on human sacrifice, you mean? Wei Nara replied. And we're no longer in the sacrifice business. The communication channel closed, leaving Quindal's shocked face frozen on the screen, for a moment before it went dark. Admiral Cho watched the alien fleet hover at the edge of their system, too proud to beg, but too desperate to leave. All around them, the infrastructure that humans had built and maintained for 150 years was falling apart. Sir, Lieutenant Kang said quietly, long-range sensors are detecting massive refugee movements. Alien populations are fleeing toward the galactic center as the Void Swarm advances. Let them run, Admiral Cho said. For 150 years they watched humans die and called it acceptable losses. Now they can see what acceptable losses really look like. The Great Withdrawal was complete. Humanity had pulled back to their home systems, taking with them all the skills and courage that had held the galaxy together. What happened next would depend on whether the aliens could finally learn to do their own dirty work. But Admiral Cho suspected they were about to learn something much more important, that there were worse things in the galaxy than being asked to help. There was being left to face those things alone. Captain Yang Sujin stood in the observation deck of the UES Explorer, watching the dying remains of what used to be the Rigelian trade hub of Kepler Station. 3 months had passed since humanity's withdrawal from the Galactic Council, and the galaxy was falling apart faster than anyone had imagined. Where once a massive space station had bustled with ships from dozens of species, now only twisted metal drifted in the darkness. The station had collapsed when its human maintenance crews left, and no other species knew how to keep the ancient systems running. "Captain, we're picking up the last of the distress signals," reported Lieutenant Park Ye-jin from the communications station. 17 ships are still trapped in the debris field. "Any humans among them?" Captain Jang asked. "No, ma'am. All alien crews." Captain Jang nodded. Her orders were clear. Rescue any humans, gather intelligence, but do not engage with alien vessels unless attacked first. The Explorer was humanity's last deep space reconnaissance ship, finishing its final mission before returning to Earth space. "Set course for the Galactic Rim, Sector 847, she ordered. "It's time to see what the Void Swarm really is." Dr. Lim Tae-hwan looked up from his research station, his face pale with exhaustion. The xenoarchaeologist had been studying Void Swarm attack patterns for weeks, and what he found kept him awake at night. "Captain, before we go any further, you need to see this data," he said, bringing up a holographic display. The display showed the galaxy as a three-dimensional map with red markers indicating every Void Swarm attack over the past year. At first glance, it looked random, scattered red dots across human space, but Dr. Lim had found the pattern hidden beneath. "Look at this," he said, manipulating the display. The red dots connected with thin lines, showing the actual path of the Void Swarm. "It's not random destruction, it's following specific coordinates." Captain Jang studied the pattern. The lines formed a complex web that spiraled inward from the galactic rim toward the center. But there was something else, something that made her stomach turn. "These coordinates," she said slowly, "they match the locations of Primarch ruins." The Primarchs were the galaxy's great mystery, an ancient species that had built massive structures throughout the galaxy millions of years ago, then simply vanished. Their ruins were scattered across hundreds of worlds, mostly in dangerous locations that only humans were brave enough to explore. "That's not the worst part," Dr. Lim said. He changed the display to show genetic analysis data. "I've been comparing DNA samples from Void Swarm attack sites. The swarm isn't just destroying things randomly, it's selecting." "Selecting what?" "People. Specifically, people with certain genetic markers." Dr. Lim's voice dropped to a whisper. "Captain, the Void Swarm has been targeting humans who carry Primarch DNA." The bridge fell silent as the implications sank in. Captain Jang felt her hands go cold. "Are you saying that humans are related to the Primarchs?" "I'm saying that some humans carry genetic markers that match Primarch DNA samples we've found in ruins. And the Void Swarm seems programmed to find those people." Before Captain Jang could respond, alarms began blaring throughout the ship. Lieutenant Park's fingers flew over her console as she tried to identify the threat. "Captain, massive energy signatures appearing throughout the system," she reported. "It's the Void Swarm. They're coming out of hyperspace." Through the main view screen, dark shapes began materializing in the space around them. The Void Swarm ships were unlike anything built by known species. They seemed to absorb light rather than reflect it, creating holes in the star field. "How many ships?" Captain Jang demanded. "Sensors are having trouble getting clear readings, but at least 50 contacts. They're surrounding us." Captain Jang's training took over. "All stop, do not make any aggressive moves. Shields up, but weapons offline." The Explorer drifted in space as the Void Swarm ships formed a perfect sphere around them. For long minutes, nothing happened. Then a new contact appeared on sensors, something massive moving toward them from the direction of the galactic core. "Captain," Dr. Lim said, his voice shaking, "that signature matches the energy patterns from Primarch ruins. Whatever that is, it's using their technology." The massive object came close enough to see on the view screen. It was enormous, easily the size of a small moon, and covered in the same light-absorbing material as the smaller ships. But there were patterns on its surface, geometric designs that Dr. Lim recognized from ancient ruins. "It's trying to communicate," Lieutenant Park announced. "The signal is strange. It's not using any known language protocols." "Put it through the universal translator," Captain Jang ordered. The voice that came through the speakers was ancient and tired, carrying the weight of millions of years. When it spoke, the words seemed to bypass the translator entirely and speak directly to their minds. "Children of the Builders," the voice said. "Why do you flee from salvation?" Captain Jiang stepped forward, her voice steady despite her fear. "This is Captain Jiang Su-jin of the United Earthship Explorer. Who are you?" "I am the guardian left by the Builders to preserve their legacy. I have waited so long for the children to mature, to grow strong enough to inherit what was left for them." Dr. Lim moved to Captain Jiang's side, his scientific curiosity overcoming his fear. "The Builders, you mean the Primarchs? The name you give them matters not. They who created me, who created this galaxy's great works, who left their genetic legacy in the children they saved before the great ending." The pieces of the puzzle began falling into place in Dr. Lim's mind. The Primarchs didn't just vanish. They died out, but not before seeding their DNA into other species. Correct, young seeker. The small ones, the quick-breeding ones, the curious ones who would explore where others feared to go. They carried the genetic keys forward through time, waiting for the moment of awakening. Captain Jiang felt a chill run down her spine. Humans. You're talking about humans. The children grew strong, learned to travel between stars, began to uncover the ruins of their ancestors. But the corrupted ones sought to use the children as tools, as expendable servants. This could not be allowed. The truth hit Captain Jiang like a physical blow. "The Council. You've been attacking human settlements to protect us from the Council, to remove the corruption that threatened the children's growth. The old species have grown stagnant, cruel, parasitic. They seek to consume the children's strength for their own purposes." Lieutenant Park's console lit up with incoming signals. "Captain, we're receiving distress calls from across the galaxy. Major alien worlds are under attack." On the view screen, the Guardian's ship pulsed with ancient light. "The cleansing has begun. The corrupted species will be removed so that the children may inherit what was always meant to be theirs." "Wait," Captain Jiang said urgently. "Not all of them are corrupt. There are innocent people on those worlds, children, families who never hurt anyone. Innocence among the corrupted is impossible. They will all be cleansed." Dr. Lim stepped forward, his mind racing. "Guardian, the humans, the children, they chose to protect those innocent people. They left the Council to save alien lives, not to abandon them." For the first time, the Guardian's voice showed uncertainty. "The children protect those who enslave them?" "It's what makes us human," Captain Jiang said. "We protect people who can't protect themselves even if they've wronged us. It's not weakness, it's strength." The silence stretched for long moments as the ancient AI processed this information. Around them, the void swarm ships hung motionless. In space. "This changes the parameters," the Guardian finally said. "If the children choose to preserve the corrupted, then the children's will must be considered." "Can you stop the attacks?" Captain Jiang asked. "I can halt the cleansing, but the children must prove they are ready to inherit the galaxy. They must show they can protect not just themselves, but all life within it." Lieutenant Park looked up from her console with wide eyes. "Captain, Fleet Admiral Hong Ji-wan is requesting immediate communication. There are alien refugee fleets approaching Earth space, millions of ships asking for sanctuary." Captain Jiang closed her eyes, understanding the weight of the moment. Humanity faced its greatest test not in battle, but in choosing whether to save the people who had treated them as disposable. "Guardian," she said, opening her eyes. "Give us time. Let the children show you what they've learned. Time will be given, but choose quickly, children of the Builders. The galaxy hangs in the balance, and even I cannot hold back the cleansing forever." The massive ship began to fade from view, along with the void swarm vessels around them. Soon, the Explorer was alone again in space, carrying the weight of the galaxy's future. Captain Jiang turned to Lieutenant Park. "Set course for Earth, maximum speed. We need to tell them what's really at stake here." As the Explorer jumped to hyperspace, Dr. Lim remained at his station, staring at the genetic data that proved humanity's cosmic inheritance. They were the children of the galaxy's first builders, carrying ancient DNA and the responsibility that came with it. The question now was whether humanity would choose to rule the galaxy or save it. And that choice would determine whether the universe lived or died. President Bae Yunseo stood at the window of her office in Geneva, watching the sky fill with alien ships. For 3 days, refugee fleets had been arriving at the edge of Earth's solar system. Millions of beings who had once looked down on humanity now begged for sanctuary from the void swarm. Her communication console buzzed with urgent messages from every human military leader in the system. The situation was getting worse by the hour. "Madam President," her aide announced, "General An Kyung-soo is here for the emergency briefing." General An entered the office carrying a data tablet and wearing the grim expression that had become common since Captain Yang's report arrived from the Galactic Rim. The discovery that humans carried Primarch DNA had changed everything. "Ma'am, the situation is critical," he said, activating the holographic display in the center of the room. "The Void Swarm has accelerated its attacks. 15 major alien worlds have fallen in the past week." The display showed the galaxy with vast red zones marking Void Swarm territory. The infection was spreading faster than anyone had predicted, consuming entire star systems in days rather than months. "What about our defenses?" President Bae asked. "Our fleet is ready, but the analysis isn't good. If the Void Swarm decides to attack Earth space, we might be able to hold them off for a few weeks at most. The Guardian AI has given us time, but it won't wait forever." Dr. Shin In-young entered the office, her white lab coat stained with coffee and exhaustion. The brilliant scientist had been working around the clock since learning about the Primarch connection, trying to find a solution that didn't involve genocide. "I think I've found a way to reprogram the Guardian," she said without preamble. "The Primarch technology uses quantum neural networks. If I can get close enough to the central AI, I might be able to modify its parameters." General An shook his head. "The Guardian's ship is at the galactic core, surrounded by thousands of Void Swarm vessels. It would be a suicide mission." "Everything we do now is a suicide mission," Dr. Shin replied. "The question is whether we die trying to save people or die hiding in our corner of space." President Bae turned back to the window, watching the alien ships hovering just outside their space. Each ship represented thousands of lives. Families, children, entire civilizations fleeing the destruction their ancestors had helped create. "What's the status of the refugee fleets?" she asked. "Over 2 billion beings and approximately 50,000 ships," General An reported. "They're requesting permission to enter our space, offering everything they have in exchange for protection." "And our people's response?" General An hesitated. "Mixed, ma'am. Many of our colonies remember how these same aliens treated us. There's significant opposition to helping them." President Bae's door chimed, and her aide announced the arrival of Captain Oh Sung-min. The young officer commanded humanity's most advanced warship, the UES Prometheus, built with the best Primarch technology they could reverse engineer. "Captain Oh, what's your assessment of our military options?" President Bae asked. "Honestly, ma'am, we could probably hold Earth space against a direct assault. Our new ships are more advanced than anything the aliens ever imagined. But the Void Swarm isn't just coming for us. It's cleansing the entire galaxy." Dr. Shin stepped forward, her eyes bright with desperate determination. "Which is why we need to reach the Guardian before it's too late. Captain O's ship has the best chance of getting through to the galactic core." "And then what?" General An demanded. "Even if Dr. Shin can reprogram the AI, what makes you think it will listen?" "Because we have something the Guardian wasn't programmed to expect," Dr. Shin said. "Primarch descendants who choose to protect their former oppressors. That contradicts everything in its base programming." President Bae's communication console lit up with an urgent priority signal. The face of Admiral Park Jin-young appeared on the screen, broadcasting from the edge of the solar system. "Madam President, we have a situation. A small alien vessel just broke through our perimeter. It's requesting immediate audience with Earth leadership." "Who is it?" "A Zelenite child, ma'am. She's alone on a damaged scout ship, and she's asking specifically for the brave humans her grandmother told her about." The room fell silent. Everyone remembered the stories of human rescue missions to Zelenite worlds, pulling alien families from disasters that their own governments couldn't handle. "Put her through," President Bay said quietly. The screen changed to show a small alien child with large purple eyes and skin that shimmered like starlight. She couldn't have been more than 10 years old in human terms, and her small hands shook as she held the communication device. "Please," the child said in heavily accented standard. "My grandmother said humans always help people who can't help themselves. My world is dying, and the council ships ran away. Are the humans really not coming?" President Bay felt something break inside her chest. Behind the child, through the scout ship's windows, she could see the wreckage of an entire civilization floating in space. "What's your name, sweetheart?" President Bay asked. "Kiranel." "My grandmother was saved by human rescue teams when I was little. She said humans were the only ones who came when everyone else was too scared." The child's eyes filled with tears. "She said humans never abandon people who need help." General On stepped forward, his professional composure cracking. "Ma'am, if we send rescue ships now, we'll be committing to protecting the entire refugee fleet. That means taking on the Guardian directly." "I know," President Bay said, not taking her eyes off the child. Dr. Shin moved to the console. "Kiranel, can you tell me exactly what happened to your world?" "The dark ships came. They didn't attack at first, they just scanned everything. Then they sent a message saying our people were corrupted and needed to be cleansed. The council ships jumped away before the real attack started." Captain O stepped forward, his young face set with determination. "Ma'am, I volunteer to take the Prometheus to the galactic core. If Dr. Shin is right about reprogramming the Guardian, we have to try." "That's not a mission, Captain, that's martyrdom." "With respect, ma'am, what's the alternative? We sit here and watch the galaxy burn? That's not who we are." President Bay looked around the room at the faces of her advisors. General On's military pragmatism warred with his basic human decency. Dr. Shin's scientific determination burned in her eyes. Captain O stood ready to sacrifice everything for people who had never shown him kindness. "Ma'am," her aide interrupted, "we're receiving similar transmissions from across the refugee fleet. Families asking why the humans aren't coming to help." On the screen, little Kiranel waited patiently for an answer. Behind her, President Bay could see other Zelanite children huddled together in the damaged scout ship. President Bay took a deep breath and made the decision that would define humanity's future. "General On, prepare our rescue fleets for immediate deployment. All refugee ships are to be given safe passage into our space." "Ma'am, that's who we are," President Bay interrupted. "Dr. Shin, how long do you need to prepare your programming solution?" 12 hours if I have access to the full Primarch database." "You have it. Captain O, prepare the Prometheus for departure. You'll escort Dr. Shin to the galactic core." Captain O saluted. "Yes, ma'am. Permission to speak freely?" "Granted. This is the right choice, ma'am. Even if we don't survive it." President Bay turned back to the screen where Kiranel waited. "Sweetheart, can you hear me?" "Yes, ma'am. The humans are coming. We're going to help everyone we can, and we're going to try to stop the dark ships from hurting anyone else." The child's face lit up with hope. "My grandmother was right. Humans really are the bravest people in the galaxy." As the connection closed, President Bay looked out at the refugee fleets again. Millions of beings who had treated humanity as disposable now depended on human courage for their survival. "General, send a message to all Earth forces," she said. "Full mobilization. We're not just protecting the refugees, we're saving the galaxy." "Even if it costs us everything?" General On asked. President Bay thought about the child's words, about her grandmother who remembered human kindness in a galaxy that had forgotten what kindness meant, especially if it costs us everything. That's the price of being human. Outside her window, the first human rescue ships were already launching toward the refugee fleets. Soon the entire human fleet would follow Captain O and Dr. Shin on their impossible mission to the galactic core. They were about to prove that some things were more important than survival, some things were worth dying for, and sometimes the greatest victory came from choosing to save those who had wronged you. The universe was about to learn what it truly meant to be human. Admiral Park Jin-young stood on the command deck of the UES Liberation, watching the most incredible sight in galactic history unfold before her. The combined human fleet, over 3,000 ships strong, moved through space like a river of light, heading toward the galactic core and what might be their final battle. Behind them, safe in Earth space, 2 billion alien refugees waited to see if the species they had oppressed would die trying to save them. Ahead lay the Guardians, massive fortress ship, surrounded by the dark vessels of the Void Swarm. "Admiral, we're receiving final status reports from all battle groups," reported Commander Huang Xiaojin from the communication station. "All ships report ready for combat operations." These weren't the simple vessels humanity had been allowed to build under Council oversight. These were ships that represented 150 years of stolen alien technology, improved by human engineering and powered by Primarch artifacts. Each one was a masterpiece of war that no alien species had ever imagined humans could create. "Signal from the Prometheus," Commander Huang announced. "Captain O and Dr. Shin report they're ready for the insertion run." Admiral Park nodded. The plan was desperate but simple. While the main fleet engaged the Void Swarm, the Prometheus would punch through to the Guardian's ship, and Dr. Shin would attempt to reprogram the ancient AI. It was suicide with extra steps, but it was their only chance. "All ships, this is Admiral Park," she announced on the fleet-wide channel. "Today we're not fighting for territory or resources. We're fighting for the right of all people to exist, regardless of how they've treated us. Remember who we are." The response came from 3,000 ships at once, 3 million human voices speaking as one. "We are human. We protect those who cannot protect themselves." Commander Lee Soman guided the Prometheus through the asteroid field that surrounded the galactic core, her hands steady on the controls despite the impossible odds they faced. Behind her, Dr. Shin worked frantically at her equipment, making final adjustments to the programming virus that might save or doom the galaxy. "Distance to the Guardian ship?" Captain O asked from the pilot's seat beside her. 40,000 kilometers and closing," Commander Lee replied. "Void Swarm contacts are everywhere, but they're not attacking yet." Through the view screen, they could see the massive shape of the Guardian's vessel. It was easily the size of a small moon, covered in the geometric patterns that marked Primarch technology. Around it, thousands of dark Void Swarm ships moved in perfect formation. "The Guardian wants to talk to us," Dr. Shin said, looking up from her console. "It's broadcasting on all frequencies." The voice that filled the Prometheus bridge was ancient and tired, carrying the weight of millions of years of solitude. "Children of the Builders, you have come as I knew you would. But you bring with you the corrupted ones, the parasites who sought to consume your strength." Captain O stepped forward. "Guardian, we understand what you're trying to do, but the people in those refugee ships aren't all corrupt. There are innocent families, children who never hurt anyone. Innocence is impossible among the corrupted. They will breed new corruption, create new systems of oppression. Only through cleansing can the galaxy be made pure for the children's inheritance." Dr. Shin moved to the communication console, her voice calm despite the stakes. "Guardian, you were programmed to preserve the Primarch legacy. But the Primarchs weren't conquerors, they were builders. They created beauty, art, science. They would never have wanted their children to rule over emptiness. The children will rebuild better than what was destroyed." "Will they?" Dr. Shin challenged. "Look at your programming, Guardian. Look at what the Primarchs really left behind. They didn't just leave genetic markers. They left their values, their beliefs, their dreams." On the main fleet, Admiral Park watched her sensors fill with red contacts as the Void Swarm finally moved to intercept them. The dark ships flowed around the Guardian's vessel like oil, preparing to destroy the human fleet. "All ships, engage," she ordered. The battle that followed lit up the galactic core like a new star being born. Human ships danced between Void Swarm vessels, their weapons carving brilliant lines through the darkness. The aliens' technology was advanced, but human creativity made it lethal. Engineer Ko Wanshik's masterpiece weapons turned the tide. The quantum disruptors he had designed tore through Void Swarm shields like paper. But for every dark ship that fell, 2 more seemed to take its place. "Admiral, we're taking heavy casualties," Commander Huang reported. 30 ships lost, with more falling every minute. Keep fighting, Admiral Park replied, watching the Prometheus push deeper toward the Guardian's ship. Make them remember what human courage looks like. Inside the Guardian's vessel, Dr. Shin finally managed to establish a direct connection with the ancient AI's core systems. The quantum neural network that controlled the void swarm spread out before her like a three-dimensional maze of light. "I'm in," she announced. "But Guardian, before I do anything, I want you to see something." She activated her tablet, displaying the records she had brought from Earth. Images of human rescue missions filled the Guardian's consciousness. Humans pulling alien families from burning buildings. Human medics treating wounded enemies. Human engineers fixing alien infrastructure for free. "These are your children," Dr. Shin said. "This is what the Primarch legacy really looks like. Not conquest, not cleansing, service. The Primarchs built this galaxy to be a home for all life, and their children learned that lesson." The Guardian's massive ship shuddered as its ancient mind processed this new information. Around them, the Void Swarm ships began to slow their attack, confusion spreading through their shared consciousness. "The children protect those who enslaved them," the Guardian said, wonder creeping into its voice. "Because that's what the Primarchs would have done," Dr. Shin replied. "They didn't create their children to be rulers, they created them to be guardians." Captain O watched the battle raging outside through the view screen. Human ships were falling, but they kept fighting, buying. Time for Dr. Shin to complete her work. "Guardian," he said, "our people are dying out there to protect aliens who treated them like garbage. If that's not proof of what humanity really is, I don't know what would be." The ancient AI fell silent for long moments. Around them, the void. Swarm ships began to slow, then stop entirely. The quantum neural network that controlled them flickered with new patterns as the Guardian reconsidered its core programming. "I have been wrong," the Guardian finally admitted. "The children are not meant to inherit an empty galaxy. They are meant to fill it with the same compassion that drove the builders to create." Dr. Shin's fingers flew over her console as she began uploading her new programming parameters. "Then help us. Turn the Void Swarm from a weapon of destruction into a tool of construction." "It will be done." The change began slowly, then accelerated beyond anything Dr. Shin had imagined. Throughout the galaxy, Void Swarm ships stopped their attacks and began to transform. The dark vessels that had consumed worlds now started rebuilding them. The technology that had destroyed civilizations began creating new ones. On the Liberation's bridge, Admiral Park watched in amazement as the Void Swarm ships around them powered down their weapons and began broadcasting construction schematics. The dark hulls split open to reveal massive fabrication arrays that began building orbital platforms and habitat rings. "Admiral, we're receiving a transmission from the Guardian," Commander Huang announced. The ancient AI's voice filled the bridge, but now it carried hope instead of menace. "Children of the Builders, forgive an old machine's mistakes. Your courage has shown me the true meaning of the legacy I was meant to protect." "What happens now?" Admiral Park asked. "Now the galaxy is rebuilt as it was meant to be, not as an empire for one species but as a home for all life. The Void Swarm will repair the damage it has caused. The corrupted systems that oppressed the children will be replaced with structures that serve all equally." Throughout the galaxy, the transformation accelerated. Destroyed worlds blossomed with new life as Void Swarm constructors worked around the clock. Trade routes were rebuilt stronger than before. Colonies were established in previously uninhabitable systems. But the greatest change was political. The old Galactic Council dissolved in shame, its member species too humbled by human sacrifice to maintain their previous arrogance. In its place rose a new federation, built on the principles humanity had demonstrated: service, protection, and the radical idea that strength existed to defend the weak. Commander Lee So-min piloted the Prometheus back toward the human fleet, her mission complete. Behind them, the Guardian's ship began to fade from view as the ancient AI spread its consciousness throughout the galaxy, becoming a benevolent force that would guide rather than rule. "Dr. Shin," Captain O said, "what did you actually do to the Guardian's programming?" Dr. Shin smiled, exhaustion and triumph mixing in her expression. I didn't add anything new. I just reminded it of what was already there. The Primarch values that had been buried under millions of years of protective protocols. And what were those values? The same ones humanity learned without anyone teaching us. That real strength comes from lifting others up, not tearing them down. In the months that followed, the galaxy learned a new way to exist.